Hi guys, Irina here and welcome back to my channel where I review everything tech. Today, let's talk about this beautiful phone, the Google Pixel 6 Pro. I think this phone has been the most long-awaited and anticipated phone for me this year, so I've been super excited to test it out. And without further ado, let's dive into this review. A few words about the design of the Pixel 6 Pro. The color of this particular unit is called Solar Sunny. You could also get this phone in cloudy white and stormy black. We have a glass back on this phone and it's rather glossy, but at the same time, the fingerprints are not that noticeable on the surface and I love it. Here we have a gold metal frame, which is also kinda glossy, but once again, as you can see, the fingerprints are not really noticeable, so I would say Google did a good job here. When it comes to dimensions, the Pixel 6 Pro is slightly taller and slimmer than the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it's pretty much the same size as the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, so it's a pretty large phone, and no, we don't have a smaller size option for the Google Pixel 6 Pro. It's important to note that this phone is IP68 rated, which means the Pixel 6 Pro should survive submerging underwater. Speaking of the overall design, I absolutely love that the Google Pixel 6 Pro stands out. It doesn't look like all the other phones. This camera module is super recognizable, so honestly guys, I would give this phone 10 out of 10 for its design. I also got this translucent case from Google. Most users wear cases on their phones, including me, so let's take a closer look at this case. This color is called Light Frost. First of all, as you can see, it's matte, and the material is quite thick, which is good in terms of protection. And let's put it on the phone. Super easy to put it on, and the same thing when it comes to taking it off. I like that this case doesn't really add bulkiness to this phone, and it's quite grippy. Of course, any phone looks so much better without a case, but I think this one is pretty good in terms of quality, protection, and aesthetics. Now let's talk about the display of this phone. We have a 6.7-inch LTPO OLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate. I know that many people don't like curved screens, oftentimes because of the hassle with the screen protectors and stuff, but when it comes to aesthetics, I personally like curved displays. I think there is something about them. The display on the Pixel 6 Pro is super sharp. All the icons look virtually perfect, and there are not a lot of phones I can say this about. I like that the icons on the home screen look really vibrant, but when it comes to watching some content, the colors appear natural without that exaggerated vividness. Just like in the previous Pixel models, we have a few screen calibration options in the settings. You could choose between natural, boosted, and adaptive, but the difference between these options is very subtle. When it comes to brightness, this display is pretty bright. Not the brightest on the market, but still pretty good. In the daytime, I usually keep the brightness at about 85 to 90% indoors. And when it comes to using this phone outdoors, the auto brightness mode comes in handy since you can get the most out of this phone when the auto brightness is enabled. The Pixel 6 Pro is the first Pixel that supports a 120Hz refresh rate, and it makes me very happy because I love displays with high refresh rate. They just feel so much better and give you a certain sense of quality. My overall experience with the display on the Pixel 6 Pro has been very positive. It's very immersive and it just makes you want to spend more time with this phone. The only thing that I'd probably like to see on the next generation Pixel phone would be a higher display brightness. And don't get me wrong, this display is pretty good in terms of brightness, but at the same time, the tech world is very competitive, and I do have to mention that the new iPhone 13 Pro has set the bar pretty high in this field, so there is definitely room for improvement. Now let's talk about the camera of the Pixel 6 Pro. We have a triple camera here with a 50-megapixel main camera, a 12-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 48-megapixel telephoto camera. I already have a very comprehensive camera comparison video on my channel. Check it out to see for yourself how this phone compares to the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, two of the top flagships when it comes to smartphone photography. I've already shared some of my thoughts in that camera comparison, but in this video I want to talk about what I like about the Pixel 6 Pro's camera and what I don't like, and I'll start with the latter. I was disappointed in selfie videos in very low light. The videos looked so noisy and poor in quality, so I decided to try again and make sure it was not some kind of a glitch that night. And as you can see, we have the same situation here. The selfie video from the Pixel 6 Pro looks very grainy. The next thing I still feel puzzled about is the portrait mode. The photos I got looked so over-sharpened in my opinion. If you watched that video, you saw those hands, right? And the thing is, I use the portrait mode quite often, so for me it's a bummer. But I hope Google will fix it with the next updates and make the portrait mode more balanced. And my last complaint is the night ultra-wide videos. They look quite noisy, and while the iPhone 13 Pro Max has its own weak spots as well, in this particular category it pulled it off. Now let's switch to what I particularly like about the Pixel 6 Pro's camera, and aside from the outstanding daylight and night photos the Pixel 6 Pro provides, one of the things I've been most excited about is the 4x optical zoom on the telephoto camera of this phone. A quick reminder for you guys, in the past, the only Pixel that had a telephoto camera was the Pixel 4. So this is absolutely amazing to have it back on the Pixel 6 Pro, because with the telephoto camera you will always get much sharper looking zoomed photos and videos than you would get on the phone without a telephoto camera. There has been a lot of hype about the new Magic Eraser tool, and yes, it's very helpful. I like that the phone can identify unwanted objects in a photo and give you suggestions. And it's not always perfect, but in general it works pretty well. Usually you have to download or buy some photo editing app to get this feature, but on the Pixel 6 Pro this feature is already included in the default Google Photos app, and that's pretty amazing. And speaking of my favorite features, I can't stress enough how much I love the level in the camera app. I especially appreciated it when I was doing the camera comparison video. I think every single phone should have it. And I know it's not a new feature, but it's so helpful. Many of you guys asked if the Pixel 6 Pro is better than the Pixel 5 when it comes to camera performance, and I was curious about it as well, so I did a mini camera comparison test. So let's take a look at the photos and the videos I got. I've noticed that in most situations, the photos from the Pixel 6 Pro appear slightly brighter and sharper. But where the Pixel 6 Pro really shines is the zoomed photos. Speaking of night shots, we have pretty much the same situation where the Pixel 6 Pro provides slightly sharper looking photos. And as you can see, sometimes the photos taken in the night mode look absolutely different on these phones, but once again, the photos from the Pixel 6 Pro look less grainy and have less noise. When it comes to videos, the first thing that stands out is that the objects look noticeably closer in the video from the Pixel 5. And as you can see, these videos look slightly different when it comes to the overall colors. And speaking of the night videos, the videos from the Pixel 6 Pro have noticeably less noise than the ones from the Pixel 5. Speaking of the front cameras, I would say we have pretty good selfies from both of these phones. And now let's compare the front cameras and the mics of these phones. So this has been the sound from the Google Pixel 6 Pro. And now I'm switching to the Google Pixel 5. So this is the sound from the Pixel 5. Any difference? Surprisingly, the selfie videos in very low light look much better from the Pixel 5 in my opinion. What do you guys think? The other day, I noticed that there is a slight rattling sound coming from the camera module. You know, sometimes the DSLR camera lenses make this sound, and when you turn on the camera, the sound disappears. And when I open the camera app on the Pixel 6 Pro and switch to the telephoto camera, the sound disappears. So probably the reason for the sound is the telephoto camera. But I was curious, guys, if you own the Pixel 6 Pro, do you have the same sound, or is it just my unit? In conclusion, I think the camera on the Pixel 6 Pro is one of the best on the market today. I especially appreciate the quality of photos and videos you get with the telephoto camera on the Pixel 6 Pro. Also, I want to highlight the night mode and the outstanding video stabilization on the main camera as well as the ultra-wide camera. Now let's talk about the battery. We have a 5000 mAh battery on the Google Pixel 6 Pro. When it comes to battery life, I usually get about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time with moderate use, mostly watching YouTube, swiping through Instagram stories, and taking some photos and videos. And usually this phone lasts me exactly one day. For example, if I charge it at 11 in the morning, it dies at 11 the next morning. So the battery life is quite average. Today, I think the majority of phones are able to last you one day. And of course, while there are more and more flagships that have much more impressive battery lives, naturally we expect more from the Google Pixel 6 Pro. But yeah, the battery life on the Pixel 6 Pro is just average, but at the same time, it's not bad either. Speaking of battery features, I think in 2021 it already goes without saying that this flagship phone supports wireless charging, and also this phone has my favorite battery share feature that lets you charge other devices wirelessly. I think it's especially useful when it comes to charging your earbuds. And now let's do a charging test. Unsurprisingly, this time around, we don't get a power adapter in the box with a Pixel 6 Pro, but just like many of you Pixel users, I have this 18-watt power brick from the previous Pixel models, and I'm gonna use it now. And let's go! In 30 minutes, we get 37%. In 1 hour, we get 72%. In 1 hour and 30 minutes, we have here 91%. 98% after 2 hours of charging. It's 99%, we're almost there. And finally, it takes 2 hours and 8 minutes to fully charge the Pixel 6 Pro from 0% to 100. And it's kinda slow, but as you probably already know, you could get this 30-watt charger from Google that would make the charging faster. Next, let's talk about the speakers on this phone. We have stereo speakers here, one at the top and another one at the bottom. They're noticeably better than the speakers on the Pixel 5 in terms of sound volume and sound quality, so I don't have any complaints here. Speaking of some audio features, of course, we have the Now Playing feature on this phone that identifies songs playing around you. It's really helpful if you like a song but don't know the artist and the name of that song. And also, we have here the adaptive sound feature that adjusts the sound from the speakers depending on the noise environment around you. But honestly, guys, I can never hear the difference. Now let's talk about the security features we have on the Pixel 6 Pro, and the main one would be this in-display fingerprint sensor. Right away, I can say that the fingerprint sensor on the Pixel 6 Pro is not the fastest. You can just tap it like on the previous Pixel models. In most cases, you have to tap and hold it for a second. And comparing it to the Galaxy S21 Ultra, yes, it's slightly faster on the S21 Ultra, but I would say the difference is not dramatic. I'll be honest with you guys, my first day with the Pixel 6 Pro was kinda clumsy when it came to unlocking my phone, but I got used to it pretty quickly in a day or so, and now I don't really have any issues with it. It works just fine. The Google Pixel 6 Pro doesn't have the face unlock, and while it's not a big deal, I still wish it had such an option because most of the time I work from home and I don't wear a mask at home, so the face unlock would be more convenient. However, the good thing is that the Pixel 6 Pro has a smart lock feature. For example, you could choose your home as a trusted place and your phone would not get locked at all. Finally, let's talk about the overall performance of the Google Pixel 6 Pro. This phone runs on the first custom-built processor, which is called Google Tensor. This phone has 12 GB of RAM, and you can get up to 512 GB of non-expandable storage on the Pixel 6 Pro. And speaking of the performance, it feels like this phone could handle anything, from apps like YouTube and Instagram to some demanding games. So far, I've never experienced any freezes or lags. Everything is just buttery smooth on this phone. When it comes to Google Pixel, you always feel like this phone is trying to make your life easier and more comfortable with all its helpful features like the live translate feature, the call screening, the transcription feature, and so on. Overall, I've had a very positive experience with this phone, and the Google Pixel 6 Pro is definitely one of my favorite phones of this year. That's all for this video, guys. Let me know what you think about the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Stay tuned for more of my tech videos. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.